Welcome to the Scottsdale Vibes Podcast. I'm Alicia Haygood. If you are like me, you know that sports season, at least for me, the football season is my favorite sport, is right around the corner. And all of these athletes, they have huge skills, master plans, are so exciting to watch, but we never watch them grow up and form their skills and how that adapts to them to becoming a pro athlete that we watch on television. So I'm really excited this week to talk about how student athletes, we'll say too as well, get to be the professional and the process it takes to get there. When we get back, we'll have Riczer with Hypamark right when we get back. When it comes to protecting you, your family, and all your assets, you need to have someone that you can trust, and that's Jeremy Mueller of State Farm Insurance. Jeremy Mueller has lived in Scottsdale his whole life. How can anyone else know your needs more than someone who's been here and seen it all? Jeremy and his team are always ranked in the top % at State Farm. He cares, he's knowledgeable, and most importantly, he's always available. Don't believe me? Give him a call at 480-515-5223 or find him at jeremymueller.com. As a sports fan myself, I find these athletes incredible, not only because of their skill level, but because I cannot catch or throw a ball, as I'm reminded daily when I try to play with my kids. But that's okay. We all have different skill sets. We mostly see these athletes as the professional level on TV. If we are a parent of an athlete, we get to watch them grow up. But as someone who's a mom of a soccer player, my daughter's already been recruited at the age of 7 to play competitive soccer, which is mind-blowing to me. And actually, some people tell me she's already 2 years behind. And I just can't get my head around that. But it really does start that young. So today I have Riczer, pronounce your name.
Desvaristes.
Desvaristes. I've known Riczer for almost a year now, and I still ask him every single time. But he's the owner and CEO of Hypamark. He's here to tell us how the path to success for student athletes gets us to the professionals, what happens on the field and off. We're also excited to say Hypamark was born out of a desire to do businesses differently in the sports. So more purpose, more access, and more community. And Riczer and his team are building programs that give these young athletes exposure, education, and real opportunities. Riczer, you and I, like I said, we've been friends for almost a year. We met through Scottsdale Leadership. We've had an incredible time, but it's funny how you and I know each other outside of professionalism.
Absolutely.
But that's what brought us together, funny enough. You have worked for many NFL teams across the nation, and I love that you really kind of started at the top of the best athletes, and now you're down to where it really begins. So I want to hear from you, what did you learn from the top that made you want to start kind of towards the bottom to help these kids rise?
Yeah, first and foremost, Alicia, thank you so much for having me on the
I'm excited.
On the Scottsdale Vibes podcast. This studio is amazing. So Pratt Marketing Agency, great job,
Thank
great
you.
venue.
They're great.
It's amazing. So I'm excited about it. And yes, I've worked across professional sports for the last 10 years, and I've learned a lot, right, from the top, working with those top athletes, working in marketing and community relations. But I think now it's time to really give back to the youth, right? I think that's where it starts. We got to keep up to where sports athletics is going. As you can see, the NCAA has NIL, right?
Yeah.
It's turning into professional sports. But now how can we get that at the youth stage? A lot of states right now have NIL in their states. And like I said, we just want to be at the forefront of innovation, not only in this community, but across the country.
Talk about the exposure and how sports marketing is changing from when like you and I were growing up. And literally, I remember some of my friends, like their parents would be out there with the 90s camcorders, the VHS tapes, they go home and edit themselves. And that's what you send out. Sports marketing is different nowadays. So how have you seen this evolve, and why is it important to really start young?
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, if you want to get to that next level, it's important you get that exposure, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you can see, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, those are big things. And these college coaches, they're always looking at the players who can play. But now, because everybody's accessing their phones, you want to be able to showcase your athlete at that high level.
Crazy.
And for us, it's, can we identify the athletes who can really play, right?
Yeah.
And then from there, how can they get that level of exposure where they could take it to the next level? So
Yeah.
for us, it's identifying the athlete. We want to make sure you can play at a high level, right? And then from there, how can we provide you the resources off the basketball court, off the football field, off the soccer field, right? So you can get that exposure, because you'll be able to get more brand deals, right, off the court if you're able to authentically showcase who you are.
What does it take to be a good player?
Honestly, it takes, I always start from the foundation, right? It starts with great parents. When you have great parents and a great support system, that's where the development starts. And then from there, it starts with great coaches, great mentors, great leaders. I think when you have that support system, that's what makes a great player. I don't look at a great player as just somebody who can play on the field. I also look at a great player as somebody who plays off the field as well. So are they good in the classroom? Do they have a good family? Are they good? Are they marketable? Right.
Yeah.
So those are everything. And when we evaluate athletes as a whole on our NIL front of the company, that's what we look for.
How does that transition as someone who started off in the NFL? How have you seen that be an important factor to a stepping stone to get to this professional athletes, in the sense of what did you see from the NFL pro players and how that trickled down from the parents, the coaching, the mentorship, the community aspect, how it really affects you at the professional level?
And when you look at some of the professional players who are sustainable, who've lasted 10, 15 years, those guys are the ones who've had the great foundations, right? Like when you look at, I'll give you an example. A good mentor friend of mine is Austin Eckler, right? He played for the Chargers, now he plays for the Washington Commanders. Guys like that who already have their foundations, who already have their book of business, right? Where they weren't the best athlete coming out of college, right? But somebody who's been playing in the NFL for 10 plus years, right? Who has a really diverse book of business. I think when you see guys like that, that's where it all starts, and that's what we want to instill in these student athletes is, we don't want you to play 2 to 3 years in the NFL or get to that second contract, or let's say professional basketball, professional baseball. We want you to be a long-lasting type of athlete, and the way to do that is not just on the court, but it's like it goes back to the marketing. You want to be able to be accessible to brands, right? So they can see you, so they can put you out in the forefront.
So let's talk about that. You and I are huge community advocates.
Absolutely.
You have started so many programs here community-wise. So before we get into the details of what you've started and what you've done, why is that community connection between athlete in the community and this sports program in the community so incredibly important to success?
It's a great question, Alicia. I think for us, that's where you create your fans, right? When you start a student athlete at the age of, let's say, 4 or 5 or 6, right? They're growing up lifelong fans of your organization or your program. So for us, is how can we dive in deep with these student athletes and say, hey, can we create fans? Can we create a culture around it? And that's what we've tried to do here in Scottsdale, but also we want to expand it nationally, and that's our goal, right? We want to be able to start it young so they can be passionate about what they do. So by the time they get to high school, college, they're true fans of the organization. They're true fans of their sports team. They're true fans of whatever we do. And that's how when you look at, not just in our world, look at the entertainment world, right? That's how we're going to sell tickets. That's how we sell venues. You have 3 kids, and 2 parents. That's 5 tickets right there where you can sell that to your fans and your sponsors. So it's a community. Tapping into the community at the heart of it is what creates the true fan base for these student athletes.
Now, you've done an amazing job with that, with you and your company. You've done, the Fiesta Bowl and Arizona Bowl. You've done a lot of youth programs as well. Talk about specifically with those 2 organizations what you've done to bring that partnership together.
Yeah, for sure. So with the Fiesta Bowl, so I came to Arizona with the Cardinals and then pivoted over to the Fiesta Bowl. And there, we were able to start a football engagement department, right? Being able to start programs, connect with the community. How can we create more fans to attend these games? How can we create excitement so people can want to go to the game, right?
Because it's not just the out-of-state fans.
Correct.
It's right here in our backyard.
Exactly.
We want to go too.
Exactly. And I saw that as a great opportunity. And once I pivoted and left the Fiesta Bowl, I saw another opportunity with Snoop Dogg in the Arizona Bowl, right? How can I help them get to a point where they can create youth and fanfare across the state? And that's sometimes a lot of people forget, right? When you're running one event, how can you create let's say a 10-week, a 12-week, 16-week program so they can get to that next level and we can get more fans and more fans in those seats?
So how did it work? How have you seen the growth of that for the past few years?
It's actually grown immensely. I started, like I said, when I was with the Cardinals. We had 5 teams in the girls flag football, which I know we're going to touch upon. But now we have over 100, right? And and the sport is sanctioned. We went over, like I said, to the Fiesta Bowl, start weekly game of the weeks. Now you see the Fiesta Bowl have a game of the week. Now you see the Arizona Bowl have a game of the week. The Cardinals have a game of the week. And being at the ground frames of all those programs and to see it now, what we've created and now the foundation is set. It's exciting. Very, very, very humbled with the people around it, but it's exciting.
That's awesome. All right, well, you brought it up. I'm obviously a huge woman supporter of sports. You started, what's it called? The Cactus Cup Girls Flag Football. My niece in Georgia plays flag football and totally took to it right away. She's killing it. I love this because flag football is becoming huge right now, especially in the girls scene. Tell me about this and like how we can support it, the growth and all that, because they've done a really good job this year.
For sure. Great initiative. We started about 6 months ago.
Okay.
We're the only girls flag football league in Arizona and on like the West Coast.
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity for girls to get more access, right? It's right here in Scottsdale. We have about 10 different teams, and the girls get an opportunity to play, and we can get an opportunity to expand. My biggest takeaway from that, starting that inaugural season was the junior high. Right now, you see the level of investment and excitement, for those girls. So we had about 4 teams at that level, and now we plan on moving those girls up. But that's the future, right? A lot of times we focus our business initially on the top, but how can now we create a funnel? So we started that, and now we're pivoting over to a national team. We have 12 of the best girls, I feel like, on the West Coast, who are going to be traveling in 3 different states moving forward to play flag football, just so we can represent the West Coast and they can get more opportunity and access across the country.
Where is the biggest growth you're seeing with this women's flag football, the girls flag football?
I'm seeing the biggest growth, like I said, on the youth space. I'm seeing more and more girls wanting to play, more and more girls leaving some sports, leaving the other. Yeah. And I think it's an integral part in tying everything in. A lot of these girls, they do want the NIL. They do want the marketing. In order for us to continuously create that level of opportunity and access for them, why not bring them in one room in a setting like that so we can show our brand partners like, hey, this is the organization we have. Look at these 150 girls play. There's great opportunity and access for them.
You've mentioned a couple of times, let's dive into it, NIL. It is so confusing to me. It's ridiculous. I so support these athletes getting something because, hello, I buy the shirts with their names on it.
Yeah, for sure.
We all are guilty of it. It's a lot, though. And I will say, I've been pissed when some of my players left to go to another school when I obviously wanted them. Mm-hmm. How does this work? And what are your personal opinion and takeaway of this? I'll say this, too. Growing pains with everything new, right? Kind of thing. But what is the NIL and how do we understand it?
And, knowing you're a big Ole Miss fan, right?
I'm an Ole Miss fan.
Exactly. In order for Lane Kiffin to stay sustainable, right? Especially in today's day and age, you have to offer opportunities. Yeah. Now, the word NIL is thrown around a lot.
It is.
But I do think there's 2 sides of NIL.
What does NIL stand for, first and foremost?
Name, image, and likeness.
Okay.
Right? And not everybody can get the same NIL, right?
Correct.
So that's where collectives and brand partners partner with the student athletes, right? Mm-hmm. People look at it like, hey, it's pay for play, right? It's 2 different things. With name, image, and likeness, it's similar to corporate partnerships. Now you're just partnering with the individual athlete. Okay. So I think a lot of times when you can break it down that way, it's easier to understand it. So in terms of NIL deals and what they look like, the athlete is now like the business. So for instance, which is
a professional athlete kind of sense.
Correct. It's a professional athlete kind of sense. And it's like what you're doing in your business, right? So how are you selling Scottsdale vibes? Yeah. And that's how the NIL agent is selling the NIL athlete. Okay. The misnomer is everybody is NIL, right? But you also have to show your ROI and return on investment as well. So if the athlete is not performing on the field, then NIL becomes lower. If they don't have a certain amount of followers, the NIL drops. So making sure you're sustaining off the field, which I think is important, but also on the field and what you have to do, I think is equally as important.
Everything you've said has been full circle from the point of why it's important to what you learned at the top to start at the youth at the bottom.
Correct.
Why what you do off field will affect your NIL. It's not just it's the whole package from the mentorship, the how you bring yourself, put yourself out there, the parenting and all that kind of stuff. That is a package deal. So whenever most people, when they think of athletes, it's like, what's your skill set?
Correct.
It's like that's such a small part of a package of being marketable is what you're saying.
Correct. And it's like you said, the pros. If you want that big deal, you got to be able to be that holistic athlete. It's like when we first started the show, you asked, what makes a great athlete? And like I said, for us, it's the foundation of the parents, right? And if you have that great foundation, then that's when the brand, let's say like we have a brand partner in Gatorade. Gatorade will go and say, oh, Riczer, what do you think about so-and-so?
Yeah.
How's their families? How's, what's their background. So
Well, think
there's
about
there's more that go into it.
I don't know about, but remember when we were applying for colleges, we had to write essays and stuff like that and get teacher recommendations and it's the same thing kind of thing. I mean, it was the whole package in order to get into college. What else do you have to add besides your test scores?
For sure.
What else do you have to add besides what your skill level is?
Absolutely.
What are the biggest questions you're hearing from families to go ahead and educate us that way?
For sure. Some families ask, okay, how can I get NIL? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I get DMs.
How can my kid make some money, honey?
Exactly.
Because I want some reimbursement.
I get DMs. I get DMs all the time that are like, "How can I get NIL?" Well, you don't just get NIL. Okay. NIL has to choose you as well. Okay. I think there's certain companies who provide NIL, but like I said, it has to choose you. If you're a great athlete off the court, more than likely you're going to draw that attention. What gets you over the top to sign that dotted line is, like I said, that holistic aspect, right? Like, are they marketable off the court, right? What are their presence, in a room, right? Like, those things are things that a lot of people don't realize, but that's what makes NIL successful. So everybody wants money, but not everybody, is a true NIL athlete. So being able to have a marketable athlete off the court, the appearance is important, but also having a holistic aspect of a student athlete, that's what gets you an opportunity to get NIL.
Okay. Biggest thing that a student athlete should do for themselves to get to that next level?
Absolutely. And next level, both sides, I'd say be authentic, be yourself. Some people try to be people they're not, especially in today's day and age with social media. Be authentic and be yourself. If you can be authentic and be yourself, brands are going to notice. People are going to notice, right? And then from there, the major players in this space, in the sports space, will notice that as well. And eventually your breakthrough will happen. They might not see it right away, but we want to be able to, we tell all the student athletes, be yourself. We'll help you. We'll provide the resources for you to support that infrastructure, but we want you to be authentic. And that authentic sells. If you can be authentic, that's what sells in this business. And
all businesses.
Exactly. Yeah. So I try to tell our student athletes, just be authentic, be yourself, and that's how we can, get you to that next level overall.
What's next for you?
We're excited. We're traveling. I'll be out of state for the next 2 months.
Okay.
And then
Perfect timing.
Exactly. I go to Texas in July, and then.
Well, never mind. That's not better. I've lived in Texas in July.
Exactly. And then we're working with a lot of different companies on the sports consulting side of it. We'll be consulting more companies. We're really going to focus on that arm of our business moving forward. Is how can we help now? We help a lot of student athletes, right? Yeah. We have right now 10 athletes signed. That's awesome. We have the nonprofit arm with the girls flag football, but now we're going to get over to how can we help these companies market? Because a lot of times, we're getting these student athletes NIL deals, and these companies are like, oh, I want that for my company. So now it's how can we go into these companies and really provide them the marketing, the community outreach, that branding that they need to get to the next level. So that's our main focus now moving forward.
Let me ask you about that really quick. When it comes to these athletes, the national versus local branding, when it comes to them in NIL deals, how does that work? It's
a great question. Locally, you'll get the local brands, right? But nationally, having a set of followers, right? They're looking at numbers and ROI, right? Can you show them a return on investment? Is the athlete projected to go to the next level, Power 4 school? Are they expected to go professional, right?
Okay.
So that's kind of the local and national level. Locally, they're not saying like there's the mid majors, there's the GCUs, and there's the NAUs, right? But the national athletes, that's Florida, Ole Miss,
again,
Texas.
like Georgia, Ole Miss. I know that's what you meant to say. That's fine.
Exactly. So that's where
So it really depends on the athlete,
exactly,
their potential, their ability, and where that NIL comes in. Because I want to ask, is there local NIL money here for athletes and that kind of stuff? It may not be as big, but are you seeing local companies?
That's a great question. I do think it's not as developed as it should be, but organizations have to recognize, right, when you can attach yourself to a student athlete, even or a club, right, with 100 athletes, that's over 300 families. Think about it. There's a mom and dad. So if you want to sell your product, that's a great opportunity to sell your product, right? Now you're creating fans from the bottom, right? So that's what I try to educate a lot of local businesses is this is an easy marketing front, right?
Yes.
Where these kids, if you put your brand on these kids' T-shirts, they're going to tell their friends at their school. That opens more opportunities for your business to keep growing. So I always tell people NIL is not a bad thing for businesses. It's an easy thing for businesses, especially if you want to connect to the community and really get more people and drive more people into your doors.
See, I love that because you know me, everything I do is local advertising and marketing. So there is so much potential there. And I know you deal with this too, we think bigger terms. This is where I want to be. It's at the very top, but you can't get there until you start here in your backyard. So as we grow more, we can get more of that local advertising and sponsorship to support our local athletes and go from there.
Absolutely.
You know, supporting them in high school and college. So I love that because I agree. You got to start here.
For sure.
All right, last question.
Okay.
I hope you don't mess up. It is the one that tricks every single person I've ever had on. Okay. What is your favorite Scottsdale vibe?
Oh, my favorite Scottsdale vibe. It has to be. I've been.
See, I told you. Everyone has to think.
It does trip me up. It does trip me up. Honestly, it has to be the Phoenix Open. I would say the Phoenix Open. The Phoenix Open, I think, being somebody in athletics, it brings the community together. Yeah. I think that's the standard of where I see this state going nationally.
I love that.
So I look at the Phoenix Open as something that, how can we replicate that and create a community activity out of that across the board? Yeah. Not just, can we expand past the Phoenix? Can we build more things past the Phoenix Open? Yeah. So going there, inviting local clients, inviting, friends from out of state, we look at that. I personally look at that as the standard in terms of bringing the community together. So Phoenix Open, I would say is my biggest Scottsdale vibe, but also just even being here in Fashion Square, right? Like it's a vibe being here, all the local restaurants and the opportunities here is amazing. So I would say the Phoenix Open, and a sleeper I would say is also the Scottsdale Stadium. I like baseball, big baseball person. So it's a sleeper, but I would lean towards the Phoenix Open.
Okay, those are all new answers, by the way.
Yeah. Oh,
I've been doing
really?
this for like 4 years.
Wow.
And
Nobody's ever said that?
No, not specific to that.
Oh, wow.
But I liked your answer of the why behind it more. I mean, obviously everyone wants to come here to party and stuff like that. And I'm sure if you ask other locals, they're like, please don't do any more of that.
For sure. But I also think there's a new generation coming up, right? Yeah. And there's an opportunity to expand on innovation. And I think for somebody who's come from the sports world across the country, you look at something like that as that's a vibe, right? And I think that's something that we have to lean in on a little bit more is, what does a vibe look like? And if we can create a structured vibe like that, the city will continue growing. And I think we have great leaders to create that.
I love it. Starting with you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
And listen, we have the link in the description about hypamark.com, and we will put all of that in the description of the episode. In the meantime, have a wonderful week, Scottsdale. Keep vibing, and I'll see you probably at a pool around town. Buying a home can be scary and sometimes frustrating, but all of that can go away with the right realtor. And that's where Sean Shackleton with the Shackleton Group is here for you. Sean has over 25 years experience in real estate. She's here to get you what you want and won't settle for less. She's experienced, knowledgeable, and understands this market, which these days is always changing. Take the stress out of your next home purchase by calling Sean at 480-734-7277. You can also find her at theshackletongroup.com.